In a zoo with mutated animals, the new night shift zookeeper must uncover the secret of what is turning these animals into monsters, while not mutating into a monster himself and not getting eaten by them. The question is, will he manage surviving this zoo and finding an antidote? Or will he get devoured before he turns into a monster himself? Hi folks, I'm R, your narrator, and as promised, I will go over all the endings of Zoochosis in this video. If you have any video or game suggestions, make sure to send them on my Twitter. I already covered the story of Zoochosis in a previous video, which you can watch by clicking on the card above or the link in the description below, if you haven't watched it already. I also covered the bad ending, which I will quickly go over in this video. After Paul, the newest test subject, being lured into the zoo under the pretense that he will be the newest night shift zookeeper, gets the choice to choose between himself or Sarah Watkins to get the poison injected into, two different endings can be achieved. If Paul decides to sacrifice himself and inject the poison into himself to be eaten by the mother and kill her, the ancient creature who is the culprit of the animals mutating, Sarah stops him, having a better idea than to have any of them killed in vain. Sarah takes a half-paralyzed Paul to the mother's enclosure to play the bait when she has a brilliant idea of setting up a camera in a hidden place, recording Paul, Doc, Oliver, the scientist behind it all, and Mother, so that Sarah can expose this evil organization, showing who Oliver truly is and what monster they are hiding. When Oliver arrives, with Paul being paralyzed, waiting for his doom, Oliver, in a menacing and nonchalant way, mentions how Paul's wife, Lily, worried about him, calls the police, reporting everything, and that her husband is missing. However, Oliver seems to be not worried, as he mentions that they are a powerful organization, having the police on their side and in their paycheck. Even in the beginning, we saw how they obtained confidential information from the crisis helpline, further showing how powerful this organization is.
Listen.
Hello, you've reached the emergency suicide helpline. How can we help you?
I got nothing. I've been unemployed for a year. I lost my house. My money is gone. No life. My family.
This phone conversation was about Paul calling the crisis team, mentioning how he feels like a failure and cannot stand looking at his family for feeling like such a loser and not being able to financially support them. This is a very sensitive phone conversation which they somehow obtained.
Hey Paul, how are you feeling? Oh, by the way, I've had the pleasure of meeting your wife. Can you believe she reported to the police that her beloved husband disappeared in the zoo? Good thing I have friends everywhere. Now she will have to go into the grinder too. Well, lie down here for now. I'll prepare.
Oliver then explains how he will kill Lily, Paul's wife as well, for calling the cops. When opening the door to Mother's enclosure, that's when Sarah ambushes Oliver and knocks him out, injecting the poison into his body very quickly, with the mother coming out and dragging the unconscious body of Oliver in, which leads to both the mother and Oliver dying in one go. At the same time, Sarah records everything with the hidden camera, meaning she can expose this organization to the world, not relying on only calling the corrupt cops or authorities, as they would surely try to cover it all up. That's when Paul manages to vomit out the parasite infecting his body, with both Sarah and Paul managing to survive this ordeal, leaving this terrifying zoo behind, with Oliver getting what he deserved, getting eaten by the mother himself. With Sarah exposing this organization, she will surely have a great publicity, with Paul getting a lot of attention himself, even to the point of being able to write a book or be in movies or invited to shows, having a bright future ahead of the both of them, with Paul hopefully having a better life, able to support his family and turn his life around. In a similar ending to the true ending, if Paul doesn't manage to treat himself, deciding to poison himself, Sarah makes the same plan to ambush Oliver, but this time around, there's a small deviation, with the mother literally taking everyone into her enclosure and consuming them all. That includes a knocked out Oliver injected with the poison, Sarah and Paul, including a dead person wrapped in a sack. That also means that the mother will die herself as she consumed Oliver having the poison. Through finding CJ's PDA, the scientist, and talking to CJ's wife, Linda, we learned that Sarah slept with CJ to get the secret information about what is happening in the zoo.
Night Zookeeper, Paul Connolly.
Hey, Paul, this is Mrs. Summers. Did you find anything?
Miss Summers, I'm sorry to say this, but it seems something terrible has happened to your husband. I found his hand. Just his hand.
Oh, God.
Miss Summers. Miss Summers, are you there? I understand you're in shock right now, but please call the police. Tell them that I and the journalist Sarah Watkins are locked in the old zoo.
Sarah Watkins? Seriously? Is CJ messing around with that slut again? Well, now everything's clear to me. Tell her that these idiotic pranks won't work on me this time. You found CJ's hand? Let that bastard try to come home. I won't just cut off his hand. I'll cut off his dick.
You look awful.
You. Why didn't you mention that you slept with CJ? See your source?
How do you know?
Answer!
Well, kind of. I slept with him. He promised information about the parasites. Instead, I got a bag over my head and a syringe with a tranquilizer.
It turns out CJ was a scientist working closely with the animals and experimenting on them, even using the parasites. But at some point, he had a change of heart and wanted to end the cycle of killing humans. Maybe the last straw for him was when Oliver and the organization decided to test on human subjects. We learned from the whiteboard they started experimenting on the zoo animals, but they started to slowly shift to testing even on humans. That's when CJ was seemingly killed and thrown into the meat grinder. That unfortunately also means that he cheated on his wife Linda, who loved him dearly. Meaning she wasn't just paranoid shouting over the phone when she thought that he had an affair with the journalist Sarah. Learning about all of this does make Paul feel bad for Linda and see Sarah as a cheater, someone who withheld information from him as if only looking out for herself, being selfish, someone who is willing to burn anyone in her way just to get what she wants. Paul in here decides to inject the poison into Sarah and let her be the victim to be fed to the mother to kill her. Oliver takes Paul as well and feeds him to the mother, killing both of them, Paul and Sarah. There are some variations to this ending, with the dialogue being a little different if Paul decides to throw Sarah into the meat grinder or kill her with the fire axe. Oliver appreciates Paul for following his demands and obeying him, but regardless, he mentions that the mother is hungry and needs more food, betraying Paul and throwing him into the mother's enclosure to be eaten. That is of course because Oliver never meant for anyone to survive, the people that he lured into this place, only wanting to experiment on them and eventually feeding them to the mother. In another variation, if Paul manages to treat himself, it leads to a better ending. In here, if Paul injects Sarah with the poison, Oliver feeds her to the mother and proceeds to take Paul into the enclosure and feed him to the mother as well. However, that's when Paul vomits out the parasite, regaining his strength, killing Oliver with the axe, with the mother also dying as she devoured Sarah, having the poison in her blood. This allows Paul to live and reunite with his family, but at what cost? Betraying Sarah and killing her. In the very beginning of the game, when Paul is offered the probation to sign the form, if he decides not to sign the non-disclosure agreement, an angered Oliver expresses his disappointment, quickly injecting Paul with the parasite, and then throwing him into the meat grinder to be transformed into the meat blocks. It's not clear why he injected him with the parasite, as there would be no need anymore if he is simply to be served as meat. But maybe he did it because it would make Paul weak, so he could easily be thrown into the grinder. In another ending, Paul transforms and mutates into a monster, attacking and killing Oliver. This can happen while being in the train or being locked by Sarah in the toilet. When it's too late and Paul is at the late stages of transforming, Sarah notices how badly he has transformed, telling him to go to the bathroom and wash up, when she locks him in the toilet, revealing that he will transform any minute now.
Why do you need an axe?
If you could see yourself, you wouldn't ask. And also, you smell like vomit. Want to freshen up?
I guess I should. Hey, Sarah! What the hell?
Sorry, Paul. You can mutate at any moment now. And I want to live. Stay here for a while.
Bitch, I saved you!
That's when Oliver eventually comes back to the zoo, opening the toilet's door, finding a mutated Paul attacking and killing him. The mutated Paul doesn't stop there, as he goes on to attack Sarah as well, and kill her. In another ending, if Paul kills Sarah and doesn't call his wife to stop her from eating the meat that he gave her, being the human flesh, it leads to the worst ending possible, with the wife coming to the zoo in the morning, hoping to see her husband. A very supportive wife who wanted the best for Paul, wanting him to be successful and happy. She explains how delicious the meat that he gave her was, with both her and their daughter Gina eating it, essentially committing cannibalism without knowing it, and all done by their loving husband and father, someone who wanted nothing but the best for them, unknowingly feeding them human flesh, something that he will die with, being the most unhappy. Badly infected, on the brink of mutating, hearing his wife's last words that she ate the human flesh, Oliver ambushes Lily, Paul's wife, and knocks her out to be thrown into the meat grinder and served to the mother. At the same time, he takes Paul and throws him into the mother's enclosure, with not only Sarah and Paul dying, but also his innocent wife being killed in the worst possible way, leaving their daughter orphaned, who happens to have some health issues requiring expensive treatment.
Paul, I brought breakfast. The meat you gave me was incredibly delicious. Gina had 3 servings. And I promised to take the rest to her beloved daddy. Oh, someone arrived. Hello. Do you work here? Hey, what are you doing? Let me go!
This is by far the worst ending possible, with myself not imagining what was going on in Paul's head in those last moments. Seeing how his loving wife is about to die after feeding herself and their daughter human flesh. So the best ending is when Sarah ambushes Oliver and injects him with the poison, with the mother only eating Oliver, leading to the mother dying, while Paul pukes out the parasite, being able to leave the zoo together, rejoining his family, and possibly having a story to tell to the world, making him become successful. Sarah also gets her story, making her become one of the most profound and renowned investigative journalists, taking down big organizations. However, she had to cheat her way into getting information. That means having an affair with CJ, who was a married man. Not a pretty picture to paint, unfortunately. Despite all that, Oliver, a cruel man who lured people with financial difficulties and preyed on them, promising them a lot of money just to kill them in the most horrendous way, gets what he really deserved, getting devoured himself. The same treatment he gave to so many innocent people. The mother, the source of the animals, and many dying and getting mutated also perishes, with this organization and everyone and every authority backing it up also going down, all thanks to Sarah recording everything. And that's about it for this video, folks. If you enjoyed it, make sure to stay tuned for more by hitting on the subscribe button and the notification bell. As always, it's been your host Star. Thanks for being here, and I will see you on another one. Have a great day.